Hello, good afternoon, my friends. I'll be talking on some topics which are engaging the attention of the people, the government, and the mass media. That is the state, parastatal actors, non-governmental organizations, and people's movements, the social movements. I should like to remind you what Professor Panda Naik was talking about just a few moments ago. He was talking about the state. He was also talking about what are the characteristics of a state, the features of a state, and then the nature of the state, the distinction of the state, globalization and changing nature of the state, citizen participation and obligation, the globalization and its challenges to the state, and how the state, how the markets and how the civil society have been encouraged to face the state, and how the state is modifying itself in the context of the World Development Report 1997. This is going to be an interesting topic, and all of you must be participating in one or the other grassroots level movement, which I call, or in the parlance of social sciences, called the social movements or the civil society movements. And if you have any questions to ask, kindly let us know. And you can telephone our EMPC at Delhi after I finish my presentation. And I would like to answer some of your questions on the civil society movements, the parastatal actors, the civil liberty movements, human rights movements, and the various other movements, which are all called the parastatal movements or the social movements. After you start asking your questions, I will try my best to respond to you, and I expect some questions from you, because this is going to be what the IGNOU expects of us, and what you should expect of IGNOU is a two-way communication. Let's begin from what Professor Panda Naik was telling about how the globalization is affecting and influencing the state, and how the World Bank is asking the states concerned, the state members, to incorporate the civil society movements in the governance activities. Professor Naik was telling about the role of church and charities, which the World Bank has been emphasizing. The church and charities and various religious groups have been very, very important, as the World Bank says, about promoting participation of the people in tackling poverty, in creating employment opportunities, and in securing the participation of the people in the governance activities. That comes to we are coming to this part called the public goods. Some of the public goods Professor Naik was telling was based on the daily necessities, such as education, medical and health, water, electricity, then the commodities, which the state is bound to regulate. Then the professor was telling about what it means when you are facing a larger entity called the market or the marketplace. What the market expects of the state, what the market expects of globalization, what the market expects the individuals. Professor Naik was telling about the social movements. He was talking about the World Bank and vis-a-vis the social movements, and how the social movements, how the citizens are encouraged to participate in the governance activities. Social movement, as you all know, because we have been discussing about this aspect in Unit 7 of EPS 9, that is Comparative Government and Politics. This unit is entitled Social Movements, where we discuss the trade union movement, the peasants, women's movements, environment, and human rights movements. There are other movements also which form a larger canvas of social movements. And I will be touching a few of these, such as the right to information movements, which is coming up in a very large way, which has started in Rajasthan. And because of the merits of the proponents of the right to information movements, the main proponent, Ms. Aruna Roy, who has started a movement in Rajasthan, who mobilized the people, the villagers, into a movement, had found a place in the National Advisory Group, which was constituted by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And she unfortunately had to resign because of certain deficiencies the Right to Information people noticed in the Right to Information Act. Nevertheless, the social movement, one of the greatest contributions of Aruna Roy and her Kisan Mazdoor group has been the right to the enactment of the Right to Information Act last year, that was 2005. Recently we held a conference at Delhi. It was a 2-day conference where the deficiencies were discussed, and the Prime Minister and others assured them that all the deficiencies will be taken up. And anyway, there was a great moment where the villages were mobilized, and for the first time the villages could also look into the expenditures and incomes or the planned procedures of, say, Panchayat Raj, the Prime Minister's Rozgar Employment Karikram, etc., etc. There are so many other movements where the people were barred from participating so far. After the enactment of this right, any citizen in the country, any citizen of an organization can ask for the information from the organization and to let them know what is actually happening. This ensures a measure of transparency in the governance. So now let me, these are some of the examples. Now let me come to a very important thing called people's movements or social movements. What are they? These are, as you know, the people's movements. People who participate as a group find a common objective, feel that their interests are totally devoid of or distorted by the government that be, in collaboration with some of the Western interests. Then they argue for justice, they will never get. Then they come together and say that, yeah, our justice, our rights have been violated by certain agencies of the government or certain agents of the government. So let us fight together. Let us come together, consolidate our movement. Let us fight and let us have a common agenda. So thus start the people's movement or the social movements. Then the next question which arises in your mind is, can people's movement be against the state, or should it cooperate with the state? In fact, my own opinion is there are various types of movements, there are categories of movements where the programs differ. Some movements collaborate with the state, some movements are sponsored by the state because the state expects the individual citizens to adopt, to follow certain fundamental rights. And for securing the fundamental rights, the government itself encourages people to organize themselves into certain movements. And we have had the opportunity of many movements like the civil liberty, certain civil liberty movements which have been mobilized against the terrorists, say in Jammu and Kashmir. These have been sponsored by the state. There are also some of the other movements or the organizations which go against the certain Western interests supported by the state. For example, people's movements for certain people's movements for civil liberties and democratic rights. These movements are in fact certainly not against against the government. They are certainly not against the national interests. In fact, they are asking the people and the state to implement objectives, the principles enshrined in the Constitution of India. And these are against certain aspects, certain fundamental policies which of the state, more particularly of the government of the day, which are not in the interest of the people. So they have been asking the government to implement those policies which are for the benefit of the people. So this category of movements may be against the government of the day, against any party, but they are certainly not against the fundamental interests of the state, and they are certainly not against the national interests. In fact, they help the government to implement the constitutional principles. Therefore, no movement, no social movement or no people's movement should be condemned as anti-state or anti-national. When you join the people's movement, for example, when your rights, when your consumer, say as a consumer, your rights are being threatened, you go straight to a people's movement, to a consumer protection movement. That is a consumer movement. They have certain objectives. They put up exhibitions, they hold seminars, they hold people's rallies, where they enlighten the people and to secure people's participation. Your consumer right has been violated, for example. You find that the particular travel agency or a packaging agency does not deliver the goods which you had asked for, which you had paid for months ago, but you are still waiting to hear from the government, from the agency. You straight away go to the consumer protection movement, and ask them, what should I do? The consumer movement, any good consumer movement, will lead you through will counsel you what you should do to get back your goods, and also to sue the agency concerned which have failed to deliver the goods and there's a deficiency in service. Then there's another category of movement called the peasant movements. We have the women's movements also. We also got, everybody knows about the environment movements and how the environment movement have been mobilizing people. For example, Tehri Dam in Uttaranchal, Narmada Bachao Andolan, started by Meda Patkar and the villagers, the tribals in Madhya Pradesh, and Silent Valley movement which happened in Kerala, and there are so many other movements. Then there are other movements which have been sponsored by the religious organizations. Certainly these are not communal organizations. These are not meant to be communal organizations when they are started. You should not think that certain organizations which have been sponsored by religious bodies are communal. They are not. In fact, I could say that there are certain movements, certain grassroots movements like the Swaminarayan Trust, Swaminarayan movement, which was started in Gujarat. How they mobilize people and how they secure basic amenities to the people where the government has failed to secure. They go to the remote areas. Then there's the Ramakrishna Mission movement, which then there's a Mata Amritanandamai movement in Kerala, and where masses have been mobilized through the agency of religion, through spiritualism, to attain fundamental rights. And these are, you can call them as new social movements. I was talking about the people's movement. You would ask, what's the difference between the people's movement and the new social movement, new movement? Let me tell you about what is a social movement. It was traditionally defined social movement, according to Alan Scott, it's a great sociologist, is a collective actor constituted by individuals who understand themselves to have common interests, and for at least some significant part of this social existence, a common identity. And social movements, the new social movements, are those movements which have been started as a result of the impact of globalization. And here is the definition of the new social movement, and that makes a difference between what a traditional social movement was and what is the new social movement's emphasis is. The new social movements are concerned more about the livelihood existence. They are not challenged the state as such, but they are challenged the aspects of state. And for example, let us come to the peasant movement, about which we have discussed in Unit 7 of the social movements, block 7 of comparative government and politics. I draw your attention to Unit 24.5, page number 31, where you find what are the new social movements, especially concerning the peasants. What are the larger issues which they are taking up? They are concerned more about issues of development, deprivation, economy, terms of trade, urban versus rural, and the human rights, how it is affected by the negative aspects of globalization. They are also concerned about certain ecological problems, certain very basic communities which the peasants are facing, like the electricity supply, irrigation deficits, water non-supplying, fertilizer prices, terms of trade in the international market, especially after certain states have implemented each of all electronic platforms where they can get to know about the market prices of various mandis immediately at their own villages. And this information also adds to their power as a citizen to compare and contrast themselves as individual citizens and to find themselves as deprived people when compared to the international prices. And certain new social movements like the peasant movements would like to mobilize these people to focus on the deprived aspect and ask them to mobilize themselves, to organize themselves so that they can face the challenges of international market and to get good commodity prices. They are also concerned about the GE seeds campaigns which have been coming up, or the BT cotton controversy that is happening now in parts of Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh. These new social movements of the peasants, for example, ask for the remunerative prices for their products, demand the government of the day, maybe at the center and the states, to fix up higher prices for the commodities. And they are also asking for cancellation of debts or putting off of the debts, loans, which have created a massive suicide rates among the farmers, which in places like Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala and Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh face. And they also petition the government whenever the Prime Minister comes, or whenever the President comes, or whenever the Minister for Agriculture visits their place. They ask the Minister to cancel the debts or to reschedule the debts or to give them relief from this big problem. As a result, the Prime Minister has just yesterday sanctioned a massive relief. This is all because of the impact of the new social movements. We would also ask how these new social movements have impact on the government of the day to alter the policies to influence the policies of the central as well as the state governments. There are various methods of that. One is, as I said, creating an awareness campaign in the villages, in the block headquarters, or at the state capitals, where all these people, like the people of the villages, this happened a few months back in Rajasthan. Mera Patkar, Aruna Roy and their movement, were mobilizing the people even in the remote areas of the tribal dominated Dungarpur, Banswara, Udaipur, etc. They also invited the Chief Minister of Rajasthan and the district collectors for the meetings. The main purpose of the meeting was to ask the Panchayat to declare their assets, the budgets, and how they have spent the budget. They encouraged the people of the villages to come forward to report the impact of the spending on them. The villagers came forward and they were all blaming the government and the Panchayat because they didn't get what was promised. It was a broad social movement. It was such a mass hysteria that these movements created that every citizen, even in the remote villages, the tribals, so-called uneducated tribals, felt that here is an opportunity to express themselves against corruption and to declare themselves as true citizens of our country. As a result of this, the Right to Information Act became a reality. People got what they wanted. They got the roads, and the government was afraid of the citizens, because if they do the next time, it is the citizens who act as ombudsman or the watchdogs. This is the impact of the new social movement, my friends. These movements do not, like what happened in the freedom movement or the Naxalbari movement, believe in violence. They believe in education, petitioning, mostly through non-violent methods, and through a policy called lobbying. Lobbying is, my friends, this is done through the people's representatives. They articulate the people's interests. The people's interests get reflected through the people's representative, either in the parliament or in the legislative assemblies or in the legislative councils, wherever they exist. As a result of that, a very responsive movement, a very responsive government, whether it be at the center as well as the states, ask the bureaucracy to provide certain opportunities for the people to express themselves. And this has been happening in one state or the other. For example, in Kerala, you would appreciate that the government of the day, with the help of two fronts, both the opposing fronts, were encouraging the people to participate in formulation of the plans, 5-year plans. It was a major victory for the people as well as the people's representatives. People from far off places, because Kerala is, as you all know, it's a very, very literacy, a state with one of the highest degrees of literacy, the rates of literacy in the country. And the political awareness of the people is very strong. And this all because of certain social movements of the 20s and 30s, even during the freedom movement. People participated, people discussed among themselves at the grassroots level, even in their own houses, the families, about what to present in the next 5-year plan and how to get their objectives implemented. My friends, it was a big success. Then it was known as the Kerala Success Plan. It was commended even by the World Bank as models for the developing countries. This was also done by Karnataka at the grassroots level. There are other states which have also started this model of securing people's participation. The main methods of mobilizing the people and to, through the people, get their voices heard or non-violent satyagraha, long marches, peaceful agitations and strikes, and organizing nukkad cultural shows to project their demands, like street plays, street theatres, film shows. And my friends, you'll be also very happy to know that Bollywood, to some extent, and South Indian film industry to some extent, project the people's movement, the people's aspirations through some of these films. For example, we had a film called Corporate, and that was made by Bollywood. It was a reality film. All it spoke about was the recent controversy about the pesticides in Coca-Cola and cola drinks, and how two companies, it was clubbed with a story that two major groups are fighting it over, and how, unfortunately, what happened was the entire issue was forgotten because of the politicization. I was thinking that after seeing this film, had there been a real independent movement such as which is happening now, people's interests would have been protected. People would have had the say. They would not be consuming certain drinks which are non-testified, and it would have taken a very different turn. But unfortunately, that never happened because of the absence of real grassroots level people's movements. Then we have a very good people's movement in parts of Hoshangabad in Madhya Pradesh, where you have the science and technology classes not conducted in laboratories as we do in colleges and schools. They conduct these classes in villages using the local level techniques. And those who conduct these classes are eminent scientists, NRIs, non-resident Indians, who return from US and other countries only to serve the people. You might have all seen a film called Swadesh, where the main actor, Shah Rukh Khan, gets himself frustrated about his life, an isolated life in US as a space scientist. He gets himself reminded of the villages and his own upbringing in a remote village in UP. Returns. Nevertheless, he wanted to go back to US because of the facilities offered over there and the pay packets. He never minds the pay packet. He would like to settle in the village, and he does settle in the village, and he helps the people to get out of various problems like lack of electricity, water, health facilities, and education. And there was a story this was a story which was highly recommended. It went up. I was told that it went up to the Oscar level. This is what I was also telling how the Bollywood is having a re-look at the people's movements and the people's concerns at the villages. This is a very good example. Swadesh is a very good example of the Bollywood's interaction with the people's movements and the civil society movements. Let us also talk about the agencies which make the new social movements a reality, which carry the new social movements up to the people as well as to take the voices of the people to the government of the day. All of you would have read, or some of you would have read certain newspapers like Tehelka. It's a people's paper. Actually, it is really so. The people's paper. You can focus. इसमें माय फ्रेंड्स, मैं जो बात कर रहा हूँ पीपल्स मूवमेंट के बारे में और न्यूज़पेपर्स, प्रजा के न्यूज़पेपर्स के बारे में भी बात कर जाता हूँ। मैं आपको बोला था तेहलका, ये कैसे, ये पीपल्स पेपर, ये इसमें है तेहलका। दिस इज पब्लिश्ड फ्रॉम दिल्ली, from persons who have involved themselves in the people's movement, so they know the actual problems of the people's movement. One of the papers is Tehelka, as I said, and if you look at the news, look at the features, one after the other, they focus on people's movements. Every people's movements everywhere in the country. If you have a problem, if you have really affected by this, or if your friends get affected by any of the problems, you could straight away come over to me, or you can straight away go to the Tehelka newspaper. You can, you can ask, you can make your problems reflected in the paper and to secure justice. Then there's another weekly newspaper in English called The Week. The Week, as you say, as we analyze, is one of the agencies where the real people at the grassroots level gets projected themselves. They run a feature where every year they project persons of the year, the achievers. They do not touch anybody, any celebrities. On the other hand, they focus themselves. I was telling this, The Week. It's a publication of the Malayalam Manorama group of newspapers of Kerala. These people do not project any celebrities. On the other hand, as I was telling, they focus on the common persons, how they achieved the difference, how they made a difference in the lives of the people around them in the particular year. They award such people. Recently, I was also reading about the Outlook Persons of the Year award. The Outlook magazine, as you know, published from Delhi, has started focusing on the people, the grassroots level people, the people who are achieved despite all the obstacles. This brings me to this to the topic of media, the people's movements, and the state. Media, as we know, as I was telling very just now about the Tehelka, about the Week, about the Outlook, on certain other Indian language newspapers, and of course the visual media, the TV, the various channels have started focusing about real people, what is really happening at the grassroots level. They interview the people. Thus the media has been playing a very, very important role, a defining role, as you can say, in making the people's movements, in making the objectives of the Constitution of India a reality, and it reaches the people in such striking way that you cannot get through a knowledge of books or bookish knowledge. One has to live through the experiences of these movements and participate in these movements and get the benefits. Sometimes there are also risks involved. However, these people's movement, various civil liberties movements, human rights movements, democratic movements, consumer protection movements, environment movements, women's movements, etc., peasants movements, have been trying their best, despite all the odds, problems, difficulties that these members, each one of the members face in their day-to-day lives. There are certain individuals. I was reading very recently about 3 or 4 doctors, very eminent doctors, who
as I was telling, in the Swadesh, a person returns, a scientist returns from abroad, settles in a country, settles down in a village, remote village, works for the village, get the benefit, make people aware of the benefits and participate in the benefit. These 2 or 3 doctors with the sons and grandsons have been mobilizing, have been treating the people in the remote villages. I would like to say this has been happening in a remote village called Gadchiroli in Maharashtra, where these doctors have been working for years together without the basic amenities, without caring for the comforts of people. Where these are the only doctors, only medical facilities, whatever these doctors offer are the only ones which are available to the villages. They have built up hospitals out of their own resources. They have secured the villages' participation on the confidence, which is more important for a profession like medical profession. And they have treated the people in such a way that everybody started appreciating what these people have been doing. Recently there was a presidential award for 2 lady doctors, one in Gadchiroli, the other one in some remote village in Maharashtra. And these are the examples of social movements. How do the social movements and the new social movements exercise their influence on policy making? As I was telling, through the villages, through the representatives, the people's representatives, either in the legislative assemblies, councils, or the parliament. You would also come to know, you would have been learning how the MPs, certain MPs, the young MPs in particular, have been going to the villages and meeting the people on and off. Then there was a very recent news that Rahul Gandhi was interested in starting a people's movement or the non-governmental organization in his own constituency, Amethi. And this is one example of the influence wielded by the people's movements. As a movement, they have been gaining control over the years. And let us focus on the recent amendment in the criminal laws and movements about domestic violence, curbing of domestic violence, the law enacted to curb domestic violence. My friends, how did this enactment come into force? Can you all guess? It is just because of the power of women's movements in the country. Women's movements, as we saw, have been modifying, have been doing the best to secure the participation of women, to make women to understand that they are women as human beings, and to project themselves as equal decision makers in the family as well as in the community. There have been a lot of domestic excesses have been committed against the women, sometimes by the women themselves, more often than not by the male members of the family. There have been many instances where certain women have been silenced, have been killed, maybe for dowry deaths, for various other sexually assaulted women. They had nowhere to go. The women movement came into their lives as a result of mass media, as a result of campaigns, and thus started a dialogue between the affected women, the family system, and the women's movements, and the state, the policies of the state. Women's movements over a period of years have been concerned about the position and the situation of women, individual women who are not organized, because they have been living in places not connected, not reachable by any means, by any normal means of communication. Some of the women's movement members used to go to the remote places, observe what are the difficulties faced by these women, come to the women's movements at the headquarters discuss among themselves what the problems are, and finally mobilize the women, put them into organize themselves into a movement, and prepare a plan of action, submit it to the government, ask the government to implement. If the government doesn't implement, carry on more campaigns without resorting to any violence. However, certain vested interests have not been cooperating with the women's movement. On the other hand, the certain members of the women's movements themselves have been subjected to various types of atrocities. However, these women members have not cared for these atrocities. They went ahead, organized themselves, and as a result, we have movements against female feticide, against the domestic violence of women, to make the women equal co-partners or the equal partners in the property of the fathers and the relatives. And these movements, this is all a result of the strength of the social movements over the years. I would like to conclude with just a statement saying that the social movements or the people's movements have been gaining over the period of years as people have been mobilized to know about themselves and their interests. So social movements have become a necessity, a very good necessity, which will help the state, which will help democracy to flourish, and which makes the individual a human being. Thank you very much for listening to the two lectures, one by our Professor Pandey Naik on state, which was a very interesting one, and now about the people's movement, the social movement, and the parastatal actors. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. I would like to invite all the questions. Some of you would like to quiz, and to have a discussion. I'd like to invite all of you to have a discussion. Thank you very much, and all the best.